Well, everybody, I guess we know who aren't Warriors fans here this evening. It is Wednesday, June 6th, 2018. The Warriors are in the fourth quarter against the Portland Timberwolves. I don't know. I don't care. This is a hockey show. This is Teal Tinted Glasses. On the show this evening, the Washington Capitals are up 3-1. Woo! Over the Vegas Golden Knights. And the San Jose Sharks just signed the leading scorer of the Finnish Elite League, otherwise known as Liga. And of course, we're going to answer more viewer questions. We love the questions. Keep sending them in every show that we do. So for those of you who are watching us live, thank you for watching. And you obviously don't care about the Warriors either. But for those of you who are watching us on tape delay, thank you for still watching. Hopefully the Warriors won tonight. Thanks for watching. On the show, Hockey Jerk. Welcome back, sir.
I have watched 0 minutes of NBA basketball this year, and I still feel like 0 is too much. If I could watch negative minutes of basketball, that would be ideal.
Woo! Hot takes from Hockey Jerk.
Oh man.
I mean, what else are you expecting?
I think that we should have a segment of what doesn't Hockey Jerk hate.
Oh, dude. Oh man.
Well, that's why I wasn't on last week, because Hockey Jerk just ripped me a new one off air, and I could not contain my emotions. I
realize I may have been in the wrong. I mean, it's very rare that I throw coffee mugs at my co-hosts, but you know what? It happened. Kevin knows that I like putting, my coffee in.
Oh, I thought you were saying I like pudding.
No, Kevin knows I like the Snoopy coffee mug, and he took it for last week's show, and so I had to have the Ren and Stimpy coffee mug, which I never liked that show. So emotions came over, mugs were thrown. I think Ian was crying, but you know what? We're solid. We're good.
We're good.
That's good. Before I introduce the host, I'm Kevin Lacey. You can. I was supposed to smoothly put that bottom third in there, but anyway, I'm Kevin Lacey, the guy on Teal Tinted Glasses who has no teal this evening. Got my Caps jersey on, and why the conflicting Lemieux jersey in the background? Well, it's 6'6" today, so of course I have to have 66 in the background. And then, of course, your host, the angry Canadian robot, Ian Reed.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Teal Tinted Glasses. Kevin basically broke down what we're going to talk about, so I'm just going to get right into it. Washington is up on Vegas, 3-1. How did you feel about this? I thought I don't know. I thought this was going to be a closer series, and it's certainly not over yet. But to me, it just doesn't seem like Vegas has an answer for the Capitals at this point. Jerk, where are you on this series?
This series for me, it's very, very similar to the series between the Sharks and the Penguins 2 years ago, where it seemed like the first 3 rounds of the playoffs, the Sharks just couldn't be stopped. And then, you get to the Stanley Cup final and it's just like, constantly running into a brick wall and not trying to go below, above, around, or through it. And I think we're seeing the same thing with the Golden Knights. I mean, their top line hasn't scored a goal in the series. David Perron, who we're not going to get into how I feel about him, but no goals in his last 24 games, gets scratched for Thomas Tatar, who hasn't really done a whole lot himself. And, you couple that, Braden McNabb has kind of gone off the reservation with his physicality a bit. Shea Theodore has had some defensive lapses. Marc-Andre Fleury can't
just burned.
Yeah, Marc-Andre Fleury can't stop a puck. I mean, everything that could go wrong for the Golden Knights right now is going wrong, and I thought we were going to see more fight in them, but they've just had nothing through the first 4 games.
Yeah, Kevin, what say you on this series thus far?
Maybe I'm a little more bitter about it. I don't know. I mean, I've been blowing smoke up the Golden Knights bums all season. Like, I've really enjoyed watching this team over the course of the season, but I also recognize, for me, I recognize the fact that they've been able to benefit from a lot of favorable or ghostly calls, like a lot of just fabricated calls over the course of the year. And this is really the first time all season that I've seen the Knights get fair officiating. And I expect no less in the Cup finals, and no less from Wes McCauley and Kelly Sutherland, who are two of the best in the world at that. And I do really feel like the Golden Knights have become unraveled because they don't know what to do with themselves when it's a fair game down the middle. Like, I think Washington has gotten away with a lot, but those are the calls that Knights have gotten all year. And so they just kind of seem to be tantrum-like when they're out there. Like, they don't look composed. They're just all over the place. They don't look at all like the team they've been throughout the season.
Yeah, I mean, it always goes back, you know, there's a Mike Tyson quote that I really, really like. And he said, you know, strategy gets you only so far until you get punched in the nose. And then strategy goes completely out the window. You kind of go into survival mode. And, you know, like, and I feel like the Golden Knights, they've never really been punched in the nose during this playoff run. They've never really faced any adversity,
or even in the season.
Well, but I mean, they had their ups and downs. They've definitely had adversity in the season. I mean, they went through 4 goaltenders. You know, they had their injury troubles just like everyone else. Like, I think what they did with 4 goals. I mean, when you figure out how many goalies have gone through that team this year. I mean, they've definitely faced adversity, but in the playoffs, they really haven't. I mean, this is the first time they've been down in a series. You know, yeah, the Sharks beat them 2 games, but they were never behind in the series. You know, and to me, it's like, this is when you figure out what you're made of, and what strategy, you have goes out the window, because I feel like the Knights, they don't know what to do anymore. Like, to what you said, Kevin, the Golden Knights, they're all kind of discombobulated. They're out of their game. And I think that also the Capitals are a nice aggressive team, but they also play a good defensive system.
Yeah.
And they've been, they've dominated, they've stopped the passes, they've gotten in all the lanes. Like, it's kind of the one disappointing thing I think about Vegas being down in a hole in this series is I would love to see more teams play like the Golden Knights. Just pressure. They don't really play a trappy system. They play from buzzer to buzzer. They don't sit back on a lead. They just keep going. Like, it's the NHL is a copycat league, so you kind of, if anything came out of Vegas winning the Cup, and I know that doesn't sit well with a lot of people, but if anything came out of it, at least you would hope that some of that would, some of the other teams would pick that up, because I think that they do play a fun style of hockey to watch.
And before I let Hockey Jerk speak again, you're not allowed to speak again, Hockey Jerk. But you're talking about the copycat league. Yeah, I could totally see that happening if Vegas were to pull it off. They'll have to have a massive comeback. But if they were to pull it off and win the Cup, you would see that. Because look at a few years ago, I can't remember which goalie it was. Niemi.
Well, yeah, and they're inside the new cheap goalies.
It was goalies are going to be making $7 or $8 million, and then Antti Niemi came in, and all of a sudden, the goalie market just went, and goalies were lucky to make $1.5 million there for a while.
Went to Russia,
huh?
Nabokov went to Russia.
yeah,
because he
exactly.
Couldn't get a contract for the money he wanted. And the Sharks signed Niemi, and then they ended up getting, because again, it was, everyone's going to get their goaltending on the cheap. They're going to put all their money elsewhere. Because it was not only was it Antti Niemi, it was Michael Leighton on the other end.
Yeah.
Neither of which were making any money.
Go ahead, Hockey Jerk.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just agreeing. I mean, that you think back to that cup final. I mean, you had Antti Niemi on one end, and then, like you said, Michael Leighton on the other end. Brian Boucher had a few games as well, I believe. And, not to knock Boucher, but I mean, he wasn't really a super elite goalie, save for his, ridiculous shutout streak that he had.
Right. Yeah.
That's a side tangent, but I'm trying to remember who was the number 1 goalie for the Flyers and then got hurt that Michael Leighton had to come in and play.
Ray Emery?
Oh, maybe. Was it? I don't know. That's for later, guys. Let's keep. Caps are up 3-1.
Caps are up 3-1. You know, here's one thing that does bug me with the final, though. Does the final really need to span 3 effing weeks? Like, what's with these huge breaks between games? This is stupid. Like, I want hockey to last as long as it possibly can because I don't watch any other sport. But I have to tell you, waiting 2 to 3 days between each game is kind of garbage. I think the NHL is doing themselves a huge disservice with the scheduling because, he should still have it. I mean, guys are going to be banged up, extra days, probably with some of the injuries because I play with extra days probably aren't helping very much. Get it done. It's June. It's time to end hockey. Give me the game the final series shouldn't take 3 weeks to finish if it goes end to end. It's just silly.
It should not take 5 days to get started or whatever. I think it was Alex Martinet of Teal Tinted USA who had said in an offline chat, why is this happening? And I was quick to point out, I think this is the 3rd straight year this has happened where there's been 5 days in between the conference finals and the cup finals beginning. And it's absurd. Like you said, just get it going. You lose your momentum. Like for me, I actually became disinterested in this series. 2 of the teams who I enjoy watching the most. And I was like, when the series began because I as a fan started losing momentum in my interest in the playoffs.
Yeah, I find I go and I feel like there should be a game, right? And then I look and there's no game till tomorrow or the day after, and then I stop looking again. It's dumb. It's just the NHL needs to, use the same cadence they use for every other series. You want to give a couple extra days between series? I can deal with that because you want to have your media day and everything else. I get it. Huge, big business. Got to appease your corporate sponsors. But once the games start, every other night, get it done. This is just dumb. Vince G in the chat. Game 1 Monday. Game 2 Wednesday. Game 3 August. Game 4 2027. I agree.
Yeah.
And that game 4 is contingent on whether or not there's a lockout. Just to kind of bookend the whole conversation about goalies in that season, in the regular season, Ray Emery and Michael Layton tied for 16 wins each,
so
and then
Emery.
And then Brian Boucher had 9 wins himself.
Yeah, good call.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, I think we already kind of covered this, but what in your opinion is Washington doing that other teams just couldn't do to this team?
Sorry, I'm going to let you seriously analyze this. For me, they've basically taken every player that I've said, except for Arvidsson, that I've said the Sharks should have drafted over the last 8 years and put them all on one team in red. That's why they're winning.
That and, they're not the Capitals, despite employing, Tom Wilson and that sort of thing, the Capitals really haven't got into any of the BS that Vegas has been trying to pull. I mean, not to say I don't want to. I hate using the term dirty unless you absolutely have to use it. But I mean, guys like Reeves and guys like McNabb, these guys have definitely played incredibly close to that line, and not once has it phased Washington. I mean, in game 4, I believe it was, Vegas kept handing out power plays and Washington just kept scoring. It's that mindset of beat them on the scoreboard because, I like a lot of people like to talk about, grit and intensity and heart and all these intangibles. And I mean, they're great intangibles, but at the end of the day, points win games. I mean, you show me the scoreboard that doesn't have a slot for goals on it, and I will redact everything I just said. But the Capitals haven't, like I said, they haven't really bought into any of Vegas's BS, but they've also just been playing some really, really good hockey. I mean, Braden Holtby is probably playing the best hockey of his career, best hockey anyway since I believe he won the Vezina or was nominated for the Vezina 2 years ago. Yeah, and I know Kevin is going to agree with me here, but how about the trade for Michael Kempny? I mean, I think it's made all the difference.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
I've been reserving my tweets about it just to talk about it on here. Actually,
nice. Yeah, you're looking at this guy. He goes from he's a healthy scratch for 13 straight games in Chicago, and then comes to Washington and he's playing with John Carlson, and it's not an issue. And Washington too just has the luxury of guys stepping up. I really like watching just one series by itself, just because it allows me to see guys that maybe you haven't heard of, or you've heard of but you don't know a whole lot about. I mean, I've really liked Jacob Verana in this series. I think he doesn't have the points, but I think he's been playing really well. And the same with Chandler Stevenson. I think both of these guys have played really well in the final. And then, like I said, Michael Kempney, and Brett Connolly too, who kind of bounced all over the place. I think he's found a home. And I mean, Devontae Smith-Pelly, it seems like he can only score in the playoffs. You know what I mean? Yep.
He's I mean, he's just one of those guys that seems to just always find the big playoff goal. I think other guys that have been kind of maligned over their careers, like TJ Oshie. I think TJ Oshie's had a really good series. And I feel like he's been kind of, sometimes fairly, but I think also unfairly maligned at points in his career. And I think he's playing some of the best hockey of his career. I mean, and then, you obviously, which kind of dovetails into my next question, is who's the Conn Smythe? Because I think you look at Ovechkin and you look at Kuznetsov. I mean, that's just, Kuznetsov is supposed to be broken, and then he scores goals. What's going on?
Outside of the game where Evgeny Kuznetsov played 4 whole minutes and then sprained his wrist or whatever happened to his wrist, right, he has a 13-game point streak in the playoffs.
It's silly.
In the playoffs. That's, to me, and I know Hockey Jerk has agreed with it on Twitter. To me, he's the Conn Smythe, and there's nobody else. Unless Ovechkin has a 4-goal game in the clinching game or something like that, I think it's Kuznetsov or nobody.
Or nobody. Just not give it away.
And the crazy thing for me is that the second player I'd pick behind Kuznetsov would be Brooks or Pick.
Really?
He's really not a guy you'd think of, but I feel like he is just playing out of his mind, defensively. I mean, he's always been considered a very strong defensive defenseman, physical defenseman, but his mobility at times is challenged. But I think he's just playing all world. He's completely shut down the top line of Vegas, as you've mentioned before. He's in their head. Man, I'd say half the cheap shots that Vegas throws are on Orpik. And they might have even paid Cedric Paquette last round to try and take him out, and that didn't work either. So I just think Orpik's been a tank in this series.
Now I don't even know if he would even be in the conversation for the Conn Smythe Trophy.
No, he wouldn't, but I think he's deserving the way he's
No, so what I'm saying is I feel like enough people aren't talking about how well Lars Eller has played these playoffs. Yeah. Especially
Smythe-worthy, though, I'm not.
Well, and that's the thing. I don't think it's Conn Smythe-worthy, but I still think it's definitely something that should be brought up.
I agree. Oshie, he's had a really good playoff run for a player that's been pretty much maligned his entire career.
I was going to say, for a player who we completely crapped all over when he got traded for a second and third round pick a year or two ago.
Yeah, and it almost seems like, because Backstrom was out for a while and he's in the 2C spot, and then he jumps up in the 2C spot when Kuznetsov went down in that game. It almost, I think the Capitals as a whole, weirdly enough, played better as a team when they were missing one of their top 2 centers, it seems like. And, I think Eller's a huge part of that. I mean, he's already exceeded his total playoff points from his whole career this year alone, I believe. And he's just that third line, him, Burakovsky, and I want to say it's Brett Connolly on that third line. That line has just been amazing.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting on the other side too. Not that I think that I don't see Vegas coming back and winning this, but I feel like Marc-Andre Fleury is well out of this conversation at this point. Even if Vegas were somehow able to turn around, he would have to have a hell of a run over 4 games.
He'd have to probably have 3 shutouts in a row,
probably, and then maybe you could do that, right? But I don't know. Like, is this Marc-Andre Fleury falling apart? Or is this just not getting any help? Because I don't feel like Marc-Andre Fleury's been terrible these last couple of games.
I don't think so either.
I mean, his save percentage is obviously garbage, but I don't look at the way he's playing and think, wow, this is, like, I don't know. I don't really see that many gimme goals, I don't think. Like, I haven't felt that way anyway. The numbers have added up, and I was kind of surprised that he was still in Game 4.
Yeah.
That they left him in.
I was listening to NHL radio on Westwood One, and they were saying, why is Marc-Andre Fleury still in this game? Like, what is Gallant doing? But I will say, I have to give credit to Marc-Andre Fleury. Like, he visually still looks like the same goalie, even though these goals are now getting past him pretty regularly. Like, he still looks like he's enjoying himself out there. He looks like he's loose, trying to keep the team loose. But I just think the team's raveling apart in front of him. And Hockey Jerk, all the names you mentioned, like Andrei Burakovsky, Devontae Smith-Pelly and stuff, to answer your question earlier, Ian, what are the Caps doing differently? I think it's just every single player on that team has stepped it up.
Right.
Like, everybody has stepped it up. So Christian Juice, another player is out there.
Yeah.
I love Christian Juice. I liked him when he played for, I believe he played for Djurgården. Just freaking phenomenal third pair defenseman, shutdown defenseman for them, mobile. So, I mean, everybody is contributing.
Something that's kind of gone under the radar is, like, Barry Trotz is like he has no contract next year.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Like, I remember I don't remember which series when they won a series. I don't remember which series it was, but like when he shook the other coach's hand, like, I'm pretty sure he said, like, I'm done after this. I'm done. And I wonder what happens. Like, what I'm curious to see what happens. Like, if they win, they have to bring him back, right? You can't just let him walk away. But I mean, I guess he could. He'll be, he could go out and be like, okay, who's gonna pay me money? I'm a Stanley Cup winning coach. I think it's crazy. I mean, obviously you get to a point where you don't want to distract him with contract talks or whatever. But I mean, if you're Washington, how badly do you need to get this done?
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, they do need to get this done just to kind of just shirk the just all the bad things that have been said about them and all the bad memories. I mean, bad playoff memories. Ovechkin can't do this. Oh,
of course,
players are stepping up. Like, if the Capitals somehow lose this series, they may never make the playoffs again. Like, they have to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I have a question, a listener question from Zeke, friend of the show. You can find him on the Hockey Writers, writing San Jose Sharks. You should definitely check that out. He's interested in our take on this. Third year in a row, the Stanley Cup final team features the Pens or a clone of their style. Because I do agree that the Caps and Pens play a pretty similar style of hockey. Super aggressive forechecks, emphasis on quick strike scores, etc. How is this going to change the game? I think it's a common progression. I think the teams that have the speed are exploiting with the speed. I think you see that similar with Vegas. I think Vegas does really well, exploiting the speed in their lineup. The teams that have the speed are definitely using that. I feel like teams are getting faster. Slower guys aren't getting in. The only thing is that all these teams like the Capitals and the Penguins, they're a little trappy, which is unfortunate because they can run and gun, but they can also shut it down really quick too. I don't know. I kind of feel like more of the same. No, Kevin, sure, somebody.
I think that the NHL is a league of you have trends. And right now the trend is small, quick players. I've always emphasized, since I've been a fan, I've always emphasized quickness over speed. And I feel like that's something that the Sharks have been guilty of doing the opposite of for way too long. But regardless of quickness, right now, small, fast players, In a few years, it's probably going to be big, fast players. And then a few years after that, it's going to be big physical players. And then the cycle starts all over again.
We're gonna go back
so
to
right now, we're in this which I love the fast, smaller players anyway. So the Caps, to be the man, you got to beat the man. Woo. The Capitals lost to the Penguins for so many years, and even the years they didn't actually really lose to the Penguins that many years. They actually lost to the Rangers more than Penguins, but it's felt like the Penguins have dominated them for so long.
Yeah, especially just want to jump in. You think about all 5 of the Penguins' Stanley Cup victories. The Capitals were on the road that the Penguins went through all 5 times. So it's like, I think that just kind of added another layer of, we got to beat these guys, like you said about the Capitals.
Yeah. But they, oh man, I lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
But I do agree with what you said. Like, I definitely remember the Capitals, it doesn't seem like they fell short to the Penguins as many times as they actually did. It seems like they could only not beat the Penguins when, like you said, it was a lot of the Rangers doing that as well. But yeah, I just think, like Kevin said, the league is in a spot where it's the small, fast players, and my hope is to see it kind of move just to bigger, faster players, just because I think it makes you a more versatile, more complete player, kind of like guys like Mark Scheifele, guys like Nathan McKinnon. But I hope once you get to that spot, I hope it just stays there, because I don't know if I want to go through another,
grind it out
cycle of
Tom Wilson hockey.
Yeah, or like
defenseman.
Yeah, like, we just signed this guy to a 6-year deal, and he's gonna play 10 minutes every lunar cycle. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Martin Lapointe, Darren McCarty.
Yeah, and I think the positive in all of that is that younger players are starting to be trained and developed at a very early age the way the NHL is now, and that's why guys who might have been really, really fast 15, 20 years ago are decent skaters now, is because the game, top to bottom, is starting to be geared towards that new NHL that you kind of mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, so moving on, Lou Lamoriello.
Really quick, Tom Wilson, the only player on Washington that I don't like. Everyone else is a player I like. So
actually, before I move on to Lamoriello, I have to ask a serious question here, guys. When the Caps win the Stanley Cup, or if they win the Stanley Cup, they'll no longer be Sharks East. How does that make you feel? Because now we're kind of just alone in our misery, aren't we? Or are there other cities that we're going to embrace now? Are we gonna embrace Vancouver? No. Like Capitals, like we always had like this, this kindred bond with Cap fan, because
it'll be the Lightning.
Lightning have a cup too.
They do, but in terms
it'll be the
final again. Like,
it's tough. I mean,
we're alone in our misery. Like this is the one bad thing I can feel like.
Skylar says St. Louis Blues.
Yeah, but we hate the Blues. Like at least like you need a team in the East, so we're not like. So maybe we can meet in the finals. I don't know. It
has to be Buffalo or something like that. But Buffalo, Carolina, no, Carolina's got a cup though.
I'm impartial to the Panthers.
The Panthers can be the new Sharks East. I don't know. Like they don't have like the repeated, like like the Capitals have always been like this predominant playoff team that just never got it done. And I don't know if we have that. If we lose that from the Capitals, I don't know who we gain that from.
Well, maybe
I think if anything that would make us Capitals West, would it not?
I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that's. Yeah.
I don't know. All right, moving on. Oh, I read this today, and I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this. So Vegas, it was announced by the city that there will be a parade, regardless of whether they win or lose.
Huh.
What say you?
Not surprised at all. I mean, looking at game 2 was, I can't stand Bruce Cusick.
Okay.
I hate bad announcing.
Yeah.
I can't stand Bruce Cusick, who's the public address announcer at T-Mobile Arena. So he's standing there after game 2 when the Caps beat the Knights, and he's going, "Thank you all for coming out to another exciting game of the Vegas Golden Knights hockey. We hope you enjoyed tonight's show." La, 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 la. So I'm not surprised at all, because even if Washington wins tomorrow night in Vegas, he's probably going to, "Please congratulate your Stanley Cup champion Washington Capitals."
Well, see, now I'm going to jump in here because I identified kind of the same thing you did when I went to a game at T-Mobile Arena, and I get it. You pump up your team and you're kind of the rah-rah cheerleader kind of thing. But
yes,
prime example. So Golden Knights are going on the power play, and there's a whole big thing. Your Golden Knights are on the corporate sponsorship power play.
Corporate sponsorship power play.
And then, if the Sharks get a power play, it's just like, yeah, Golden Knights took a penalty. So I feel like it would be like, congratulate your Stanley Cup runner-ups, the Vegas Golden Knights. And
probably would.
Here comes Gary Bettman to give the other guys the cup.
I like, look at here. I don't mind it. Like, I really don't care one way or the other. Like, I've always kind of been the thing, like, if the Vegas fans dig it, that's great. Like, when it comes to, like, their pregame show or whatever, if the Vegas fans are digging it, that's who it's for. That's fine. But M. Hackle brings up a very important point in the chat, and that is the Sharks did the exact same thing in '94, and they haven't won a cup since. You do not piss off the hockey gods. And that, I feel, is pissing off the hockey gods. Maybe that's superstitious. Maybe that's dumb. But I feel like you don't do that. You have a parade when you win, not when you don't. That's just my personal opinion. That's, that's my old school. Like, maybe I should, like, put on a funny suit and be a little bit older and talk about people commies.
No.
But like,
I just feel like should be blocking shots.
Yeah, and it's okay to hit a guy in the head because he does a bird dance after his goal. I feel like it's an affront to the hockey gods, and I know, like, that's dumb and superstitious, but it's one thing that's always in the back of my head is like, God damn, Sharks had a parade in '94. We're never gonna win now.
See, now if you put on a suit like that and started, like, rambling all over the place, then automatically you would not be a fan of the Sharks free agent signing today.
Well, I mean, I can't stand these Pinko Euros. Like,
that the Leafs are never going to win a cup until they stop drafting guys from Sweden and Finland. It's obvious.
I told you, and signing those free agents.
Yeah.
All right.
the way they're about to win the Calder Cup with those Swedes and Finns.
Exactly.
All right, so we'll get to that in a minute. We'll get to the free agent signing. I want to talk about Lou Lamoriello getting rid of Garth Snow and Doug Weight as GM and head coach. So Lamoriello is now the GM. If you're a Sun, aren't you kind of annoyed now? Because, like, if Lamoriello goes, you're probably screwed too now. Because his son's the AGM. Like, everyone thought, like, his son was going to end up taking over at some point. So if I'm his son, I'm kind of pissed.
Wait, Lamoriello's son?
Yes, is the AGM in New York.
I did not hear that part of it.
Oh, yeah,
wow.
Yeah, true story.
Look, for me, I think that Lou Lamoriello is, a Hall of Fame GM and executive and whatnot. I think he's one of the greatest who's ever been around. Like, there's a reason Barry Melrose doesn't coach anymore. And when he tried to coach, he was terrible and ousted after 16 games. Like, Lou Lamoriello, I feel, has been out of touch with the current NHL product for about 6 years. Like, he stayed in New Jersey about 3 years too long or so. And the whole time he was with Toronto, I felt like it was this constant clash between him and Shanahan. And it was like, wait, who's actually running this team? At least now we won't have that with the Islanders, but I still feel like this is a situation where you guys talking about funny suits and guys just throwing random. I feel like Lou Lamoriello is kind of like that with I feel the Sharks should trade Paul Martin yesterday to the Islanders because he probably will think Paul Martin is 28 years old and extremely mobile. Like, I don't see it with Lamoriello anymore. I see how he ran the Devils into the ground, and I feel that's what's going to happen to the Islanders. Like, if I'm John Tavares, Splitsville.
Can you run the Islanders anymore into the ground?
You could have you could bring back Jeff Berube to be your goalie.
I don't know. Let's find out in like 3.5 weeks and see if John Tavares.
yeah, good point.
Yeah, because it's really difficult to figure out, like, especially like Toronto, because like obviously Toronto's in a pretty good place now. They went through the little rebuild, but it's so hard because they had so many cooks in the oven. Like, you could look at the draft. And, how much of that was Lamoriello, how much of that was Mark Hunter? You can look at the trades, and apparently, Dubas did a lot for, of watching the AHL club, the Marlies, and also was involved a lot, I guess, in trades on the NHL level. It's interesting because, again, like, I agree, like, in New Jersey, like, yeah, he ran New Jersey into the ground after, I feel like I put Lamoriello in the same category that I put Ken Holland in. Guys that just have not been able to adapt to the salary cap. And, and every time they look like they're going to do the right thing, they zigzag and spend a bunch of money that they shouldn't spend to try and take a shortcut.
Yeah, that's
the way I look at it.
Not only that, but even worse is, Garth Snow kind of already played that same kind of game where he, handed out a lot of very interesting and questionable contracts, and now Lou Lamoriello's got to figure his way through that. I mean, I don't think Cal Clutterbuck is a bad player necessarily, but I can tell you just based on quick memory,
the best fourth line in hockey.
Yeah, I can tell you he's not on a very favorable contract, and I mean, yeah. It would suck if all of these questionable contracts that you have guys on make it so you're unable to sign your big ticket and your captain. You know what I mean?
But that kind of makes me the one thing here that really makes me wonder though is especially when it comes to Snow and Doug Weight, and obviously this is always going to dovetail back to John Tavares, but we know that they had a meeting. Lamoriello and Tavares had a meeting before he was apparently officially the GM or the president of hockey operations. Is this a move to keep John Tavares?
See, I'm unsure because I was under the impression that Tavares and Doug Weight were tight, and now with Doug Weight gone, I'm not really sure. If Tavares wants to go through all of that again. And I kind of think about Toronto, and I think about at least New Jersey in the recent memory. It seems like Lou Lamoriello's style of general managing is to go for, the slow burn as opposed to the quick, the quick route to get things back on track. And I don't know Tavares, he's young. He's only, I think, 26 or 27, but, 26 or 27 becomes 32 really quick.
Mike Nev's worst New York Islanders GM, Garth Snow or Mike Milbury. My answer is Mike Milbury easily. Garth Snow did some questionable things that were unfortunately because his owner basically held his hand and signed the paper, like you being taught how to write in school. Whereas Mike Milbury had like a lot more autonomy and did some really, really dumb things.
For the Doug Weight firing, I thought was a little peculiar. But I'm not overly shocked because it's pretty common when a new GM comes in, they want their own coach. If I'm Tavares, I'm asking Lou, when are you naming your coach? When are you naming your coach? Don't wait till August.
Right.
Name your coach now. That's going to be a huge, huge factor. Doug Weight, this is not it for him.
No.
I'm curious to see if he lands another head coach job somewhere because There's a coach, Tom Rennie, who I think is a fantastic assistant coach. But every time he's been named a head coach, it's been awful. Like, just downright awful. I don't know what it is about the difference between assistant and head coach that there can be that stark contrast, because contrast, because it just seems like everything goes right when he's the assistant coach of a team. I wonder if Doug Waite's in that category, like, because he is the players guy. Was it last year when he got named head coach? I think it was last year.
Yeah, I feel like
that's 16, 17, I mean. And the Islanders responded tremendously, but I think a lot of it was you're going from Jack Capuano to who was a guy, we'll just say go from Jack
got fired, by the way,
to a guy who's absolutely beloved in Doug Waite. Sure, you're going to have that spike in enthusiasm and play, and then it starts to wear down, and it's like, oh, we're actually not really that good. But so I'll be curious to see how Waite's future coaching career goes.
Well, I think, as important as Tavares is, obviously, I mean, you got to get a goalie if you want that team to be even pointed in the right direction. And I mean, it's a shame that, all of this isn't going down 5 years ago, and, Lou can't pry Corey Schneider from Vancouver for the Islanders. You know what I mean? But yeah, like I said, I mean, they can re-sign Tavares, and they can, get more out of Andrew Ladd, and all this, good stuff can happen for them. But like I said, if they don't get a goalie, they're not even pointed in the right direction.
That's true. And I agree, because I mean, we talked about this a bunch of times. Like, this is a team where if they could just get a save, they score enough that they scored like the third most goals in the league this year.
Yeah, that whole top line was like ridiculous all year.
And that was after losing Okposo.
Right, like, I don't know.
Which I even forgot he was on that team.
I don't know, man. Look at, I don't know. I mean, for me, as far as like John Tavares goes, because that's always the first question we get when anything happens in New York. I don't know. I mean, I'm of two minds. Either this is what Tavares wanted, which what Kevin says, with him being tight with Doug Waite, maybe GM had to go in. Lamoriello just wants his own GM, and that was just the cost of business, right? Like, if Snow, I mean, they're not really gone. They're both still in the organization, from what I understand, because for one, Garth Snow has like this awesome poison pill in his contract where he would just get paid a mint should they actually fire him before his term's up. So he'll be, I don't know, working in the mailroom or something.
Is he going to be like special advisor?
Special advisor to the mailroom. So it's either. So in my opinion, it's either one of two things. It's either this is what John Tavares wants, or John Tavares is definitely leaving, and so Lamoriello wants his own guy in. I don't know. Obviously, I'm not an insider, but it's got to be one of those two things, right? Like, I think Tavares plays a heavy factor in this decision. It's just, which way does he play a heavy factor? Has he said that he's going to leave? And so obviously they're not going to keep Doug Waite around because he's not Lamoriello's guy, and it's not going to help keep Tavares anyway. So time to cut the cord. Or did Tavares want them both gone? I don't know. But you'd have to think, like, Tavares, if you want to keep him, and Tavares is obviously looking to sign another big deal, like he's going to sign another long deal, he's going to want some assurances at this point. I mean, give him credit. The guy stuffed through a ton of crap with just garbage for line mates forever. I wouldn't blame him if he wanted to make sure that Garth Snow couldn't completely screw up this team anymore. I don't know what's for certain, but
we're less than a month away from free agency. That feels weird to say already, but we'll find out sooner than later.
Yeah, I mean, we'll find something, right? It's going to be interesting. Mr. Hockey Jerk, I have to ask you about this specifically because apparently Phil Kessel's on the block. How does this make you feel as a noted Penguins fan?
Well, you know what? I don't see Phil leaving. I mean, he, one of the big, like the whole big issue allegedly is that, there's some upset feelings about Kessel and Malkin not playing together. Now, if you're Mike Sullivan, how is that not what you're starting with? I mean, as we've seen, Sidney Crosby can play with literally anybody and they're a 20-goal scorer.
Right.
But, I really feel like Gino and Kessel have, like, as untapped as I feel it's been the last 3 years, I really think that can be something special there. And, say what you want about the Penguins. I mean, how good they are and, how they are still in their window to win a Stanley Cup. Mm-hmm. But, Phil Kessel drove that bus this year. I could be wrong, but I believe he was their leading point scorer.
I think he was.
And, same thing in the playoffs. It seems like he's like a fine wine or like cheese where, mm-hmm. he gets better the older he gets. And
the bigger he gets.
I don't know if any of you ever had a hot dog from Pittsburgh.
I haven't. I can't say that I have.
But if you're trading him, you have a lot of value that you can capitalize on. But if you also like Stanley Cups, you shouldn't be trading him. Basically.
The only thing I can think of is the cap issue. But again, the cap's going up. We still don't know to what. I can't imagine that. What's
not
that?
Not only that, but with Toronto retaining a good chunk of his salary, he's actually on a pretty affordable deal.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think the Kessel thing is because the media always has to have something to talk about with Kessel. Like, I don't know what it is.
It has been a quiet time. I mean, obviously the Cup final, you're not really allowed to do anything. I don't know I don't know which way the wind's blowing in Pittsburgh. Honestly, I agree. Kessel's on a pretty affordable deal when you consider Toronto's got the cap space. I don't know. I mean, unless there's some sort of rift there that we don't know about, I don't know why you'd be eager to move him out. I don't really feel like anyone has pushed him out of the lineup at this point. Not even close.
And that's the thing is, like I said, allegedly the problem is that he's not playing enough with Evgeny Malkin, but
he's not going to play with him at all if he's gone.
That's the thing. It's like, and this is kind of the same mindset I have with other teams who have rattled off a bunch of Stanley Cups. It's like, if you want to keep the good times rolling, why are you going to get nitpicky all of a sudden? Like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I just don't understand how winning a Stanley Cup is, but
maybe.
I don't know.
But let's say Doug Wilson strikes out in free agency and this turns out to be a thing. Do the Sharks go after Phil Kessel, and what do they give up to get him?
Well, if they're going after Phil Kessel, then I have to think Tomas Hertl's going the other way, at least to start.
Tomorrow, all trades start with Hertl or Couture,
or Timo Meier.
Around that.
Oh, I don't know about Couture. I mean,
but the last couple of years, whenever we've heard about the Sharks might be acquiring this big player, however, the stalling point is that the Sharks don't want to lose Logan Couture every time. So the starting point is one or the other of those two.
I mean, I'd rather. Oh, man, I can't even. I mean, Hertl's younger, but shit, can you trade Couture at this point? I don't think so.
No. I just don't.
I don't like the idea of trading Hertl either, but I feel like if you put a gun to my head and make me choose, I'm keeping Couture.
Well, I just don't see how the Sharks have any assets to get a player half as good as Kessel.
Well, I mean,
say that, and then stupid trades happen all the time.
Well, and just a friendly reminder, the ink on Evander Kane's contract is still pretty new.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like I said, Evander Kane for $7 million a year, like if the output that he's going to have correlates directly to his contract, then Phil Kessel theoretically shouldn't be needed on this team.
Okay. So another thing I thought just to bring up, we don't have to really super discuss it. I just thought it was a little bit eyebrow raising, especially if you hate Vegas. So you're hearing, obviously extension talk for Drew Doughty. Oliver Ekman-Larsson's been in the news lately. Nothing on Erik Karlsson so far. If you're an Ottawa fan, how worried are you? And if you're a Vegas fan, how much are you licking your lips because that trade is so much easier to make in the offseason?
I think that the silence might be because Vegas is kind of involved in something at the moment. Honestly, I think if I'm an Ottawa fan, I'm glad nothing is happening on that front right now. I think the silence is better. I'd rather hear that than a ton of rumors leading into the draft that's only what 2.5 weeks away.
Yeah, but wouldn't you rather hear like there's an extension in the works rather than not? Like this is Erik Karlsson. This guy's going to be a UFA after a
But
year.
can't or isn't he not allowed to get an extension until July 1st?
You can still, I mean, you're still hearing rumors like there's an offer on the table, you know, for Ekman Larson. They can't sign it until the first. They can negotiate before. It's not tampering with your own player.
Right. That's true.
Right.
That's true.
And I'm still of the belief that, you know, Ekman Larson, Erik Karlsson. I'm of the belief Erik Karlsson is out of Ottawa before training camp next season. I mean, it appeared obvious to me that, you know, he doesn't want to be there or somebody doesn't want him there. And, you know, I know we got a question relating to the Ottawa Senators as a whole, but kind of just like as a whole umbrella. And I mean, I've said it on previous pods too. I don't understand the idea that the Ottawa Senators need to rebuild. I mean, I think if bounces go their way this season, I think they're right back in the playoffs. And I think
the Atlantic's weak enough.
Exactly. And I think trading Erik Karlsson, I mean, if there's like some kind of issues off ice or whatever, or, you know, a rift in the locker room, then that's a different story. But if this is just because you have to rebuild or whatever, then I just think if you're Ottawa, you're making things more difficult for yourself. But I feel like that's the path that we're ultimately going to see the Senators take, is that Erik Karlsson is going to be gone, you know, less than a year after they traded their future for Matt Duchene.
I mean, it's hard though, because like, you know, on one hand, if you're Ottawa, you want to get this done, but like, there's a part of me that just thinks Erik Karlsson just doesn't want to be there anymore. And when you have former players and revered players like Daniel Alfredsson coming out saying that everyone wishes that they had a different owner, like Eugene Melnyk, like if he loses Karlsson because he's a douche, then like I don't know how you get back from that. Like Erik Karlsson, I mean, I don't know if I'd say he's generational, but he's damn elite. He might be generational, but he's damn elite. Like he's one of the best defensemen in the league. And I just can't wrap my head around the idea that, you know, if you're an owner and you can't keep Erik Karlsson happy, then man.
Not only that, but it hurts your future potential of luring other free agents.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's just, I don't know, man. It just seems crazy to me. I thought I would bring it up. All right. So I have another question here. Question, obviously, John Tavares related. Assuming John Tavares doesn't sign in San Jose, which is what I am assuming, what is the Teal Tinted Pods ideal Sharks lineup going to be? Feel free to include preferred free agent signings. So I made two lineups. I have the Sharks strike out in free agency and they take their ball and go home. My top line is Hertl, Couture, Timo Meier, Evander Kane, Joe Thornton, and Pavelski on the second line. Maybe it's not the second line per se, but it plays second line minutes. I have Chris Tierney with Kevin Labanc and Jonas Donskoy. I have Karlsson, Gambrell, and Gaudreau on the fourth line, and then your defense is basically the same as it is this year. And obviously your goaltenders are the same. In my grab a player from free agency, my top line again is Hertl, Couture, and Timo Meier. My second line is Evander Kane, Paul Stastny, and Joe Pavelski. And the reason I like Stastny is because he's an older player, so you don't have to give him a long-term deal. He can be a stopgap centerman. I think with Joe Thornton, I have Joe Thornton in this lineup too, but I feel with Joe Thornton, not knowing what you're going to get from Joe Thornton and no knees next year, I feel like Paul Stastny would be a good stopgap to fill in, because I feel like, you know, you with signing Evander Kane, I don't really feel like you need to go out and get a JVR at this point. Like you kind of need center depth, which I think is what they would. You know, obviously John Tavares is a big deal regardless of position, but I feel like that still, like John Tavares would address a need in that position specifically. I like Hertl with Couture because Hertl takes most of Couture's draws, because Couture's been terrible in the draw the last year and a half. Couture's numbers have been abysmal for a top 6 center, in my opinion. Just abysmal in the dots. So you need Hurdle there. And I don't think you put Hurdle back to center for that reason, because I feel like Hurdle can go in and take Couture's draws, and then, Couture can handle the position of center and where he should be on the ice, whereas Hurdle excels at being a wing and causing havoc. And then so I have my third line again goes back to LeBanc, Thornton, and Donskoy. I don't think Thornton would ever be the third line center on this team because Peter DeBoer, but if I had my way, that's what it would be. And then I have Carlson, Tierney, and Gaudreau as your fourth line. Obviously, Tierney would get bumped back down to the fourth line, and your defense is still the same, because I really don't think the Sharks are going to do anything on the D side of the puck.
So what I'm gathering for your lineup, and I'll be honest, I don't have a lineup because I missed that question in our notes. Okay. But what I'm gathering from your lineup is it sounds like Mikhail Bodker is gone and Marcus Sorensen is either in the AHL or an extra. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know where you put him. Like, I love what Marcus Sorensen did, but I just feel like when you look at this lineup, I don't know. I mean, I just feel like, again, you go back, I have to think of this through the lens of Peter DeBoer is still coaching this team, which means Melker Karlsson's in.
Oh, of course. I know this may ruffle some feathers, and I'm willing to take all the heat or tweets that you want to throw at me. You could follow me at hockey_jerk on Twitter. I think the Sharks should consider moving on from Jonas Donskoy. I mean, he's a good middle six option, but I feel like he's been given a lot of opportunities to finally break through and be a 20-goal scorer. And in my eyes, I don't think he has it, at least on this team. And I know he's dealt with injuries, but even when he's healthy, in my eyes, he's just been too hot and cold for my liking.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, also missing from this lineup would be Mikhail Bodker.
Yeah. I was going to
also my D pairs. I said the same as this year. I have obviously Burns with Joakim Ryan and not Paul Martin. Because I feel like Paul Martin's getting bought out in the offseason. That's just my
think he
personal
is.
opinion.
I, for one, am just eagerly anticipating the first buyout window.
Which starts next week, is that right?
Something like that.
I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe it's 48 hours after the Stanley Cup final ends.
Oh, is that what? Okay.
So set your timers, folks.
Yeah. Cam brings up a really good point too. The Sharks are at 47 contracts right now, with 3 players to sign. Usually teams don't like to sit at 50, so that also makes me think that there could be some a buyout or 2 coming, or at least a trade. They got to do something, right? I mean, you look at the defense. I can't see them just sitting Tim Heed in the box. I don't know. I feel like you could probably get something for Tim Heed at this point if DeMello's truly your guy. Because I mean, otherwise, what are you doing with them, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's a nice extra to have, but again, I feel like his offensive upside is just too high for him to be in the press box,
Right. Oh, we have 2 junior players, right? Okay. Anyway, okay. So I don't know. Go ahead. Sorry.
So my lineup would be pretty similar to what you're saying, Ian. I love the Stastny idea. Actually, it's something I didn't consider.
Yeah.
For me, I really feel the Sharks really need to upgrade at right wing, and the free agent market sucks for right wings this season.
Yes, it does.
So I think it would be by trade. Now, this is definitely a buyer beware situation, but I think the Sharks could roll the dice on Brandon Saad. Brandon Saad appears to be, just after the 1 year of coming back, there's been a lot of rumors swirling that the Blackhawks might be moving him out again. It's a $6 million cap hit, which is not great, but again, the Sharks have oodles of cap space, especially if they strike out in free agency. Who would they trade? I think Tierney would be involved. Hockey Jerk, you mentioned Jonas Donskoy, that'd probably be involved. I think Aaron Dell would be involved in that as well. But I'm not saying that's something that should happen. I would like to see Brandon Saad in Teal, but I'm not saying that's something that should happen because, again, as I've said before, I think Mikkel Bodker gets dumped on pretty unfairly. And when you look at the stats head-to-head this season, Mikkel Bodker had more points than Brandon Saad did. And Mikkel Bodker was an even, and Saad was a -10. So while it may sound dandy, like, wow, Brandon Saad, yeah, down year for sure. That's definitely unarguable. But yeah,
for what it's worth, I know Brandon Saad started really well, but I feel like everybody on Chicago kind of struggled.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a down year.
Unless your name is Alex DeBrinket.
yeah.
If you Carolina Hurricanes are going to love him in 3 years.
Yeah, going to love him. when he's due to make real money, the Carolina Hurricanes are going to love him. Yeah, more lineup related questions. Given Hertl's performance in the playoffs, do the Sharks revisit placing him at center and surround him with strong winners? Timo Meier, maybe a free agent like JVR. Okay. Here's my thing with JVR. I want to hit the JVR thing first. I don't dislike the idea of JVR. I just don't think that it really, unless you're moving a wing out, it doesn't really help them. Like, it doesn't. I don't know where you would put JVR. Like, are you going to put JVR on the wing and then, like, who's not going to play on the wing? Like, who's getting pushed out?
Unless JVR is going to right wing, JVR would be the third line left wing on this team. Like, your big free agent splash is throwing a ton of money at a third line left wing.
I don't know. And yeah.
KM in the chat says, I think it's time to call Hertl the 2C and let Couture play the wing. Now, when TSN did their offseason game plan for the Sharks, that's how they had the Sharks lining up, was Couture on Hertl's left wing. And like you alluded to earlier, Hertl takes those draws and Couture plays it.
Dun, dun, dun.
So, I mean, I on paper, I still think Couture is the center there, but don't be surprised if Hertl takes more faceoffs. And I've said it many times before. Hertl is the Sharks' best faceoff guy.
Oh yes, and I don't even remotely disagree with that. I don't know. Like, if I feel like if you bring JVR in, like, I feel like the Sharks, their weakness going into next season, especially without knowing what Joe Thornton's situation is going to be, I think you have to you have to get another center. You have, and it can't just be, Chris Tierney, I thought, had a really good season with some decent line mates, but Chris Tierney, second line center, I don't see it. I don't like it. Like, I don't see Chris Tierney.
It would have happened already if it was going to happen, is how I feel.
Exactly.
Right. So I like that. I don't know. Like, it's not that I dislike JVR, and I know that at previous show I may have said that he was more often injured than he's actually been, and I appreciate Kyle for the Fin for setting me straight on that with some numbers, because sometimes, again, you always talk about like narratives, and unfortunately that's one I bought and I perpetuated it, so I apologize.
I actually would have agreed with you, Ian.
Yeah, it's actually, and I looked at the thing, and he's definitely had injury problems in his career, but he's not as often injured as he is made out to be. So thanks, Kyle, for that. But I don't know, like, I'm not saying I hate the idea of JVR and Teal, but I feel like you just signed Evander Kane. Isn't JVR redundant at that point?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Yep.
Like, you have Kane, like, I don't know what you're going to do. Like, I don't know what need JVR fills for the Sharks at this point with Evander Kane in the lineup. And
with Meier on the uptrend, we hope.
Right. You're going to throw, yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing, right? You're going to stunt one of your top prospects' development. That's just dumb. Like, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't foresee, I think Joe Thornton will sign whatever check, Doug Wilson basically lays in front of him. So I can't see a situation where Joe Thornton is not on this team next year, because I feel like Joe Thornton will pay for whatever cap space is left.
Yeah, it's like I said, I believe it was last week's show, give him 1 year, like $1 million, and then just a fat signing bonus. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Or, even 1 year 3, who cares? Like, to me, it doesn't matter. Look at guys like, you look at guys who have also slowed down. I mean, obviously not coming off the double knee injury like Joe Thornton is, but I mean, Zdeno Chara just got a nice payday for a year, and he's like old man Winter.
Yeah, I believe he was still on the team when Milbury attacked the guy with the shoe. Like,
right, exactly. I don't know. So anyway, to get back to the question, sorry. I kind of answered this thing. If Jumbo's resigned, where do you put him? Third line center with Tierney and LeBanc as wings. I don't think Chris Tierney was overly impressive as a wing.
I don't think Chris Tierney was overly impressive.
Oh. See, hockey director Chris Tierney.
And I'll just let that be a teaser because I know there's an actual question.
Okay.
But, yeah.
I don't know. So let me just do you guys move Turtle to center? And if Jumbo's re-signed, where do you put him? And then where does Peter DeBoer put him?
I would not move Tomas Hertl to center. But, I mean, look at Joel Ward. Joel Ward was never a center, but he took all the face-offs when he was out there. Like, they could totally just do that with Hertl. Just have him line up differently off the face-off. And then just
most of Couture's draws last year anyway.
What was that?
Hertl took most of Couture's draws last year anyway.
Yeah, so I think Hertl just needs to – I think Tomas Hertl needs to just continue to be deployed as he was in the playoffs because he was amazing in the playoffs. And I think he's going to be even better next season with finally a year of doing nothing, no rehab in the summer, just get stronger, get better. That's it. Like, I think Hertl's going to go crazy next year. I hope he goes crazy next year. So,
and where do you put Thornton?
I put Thornton on the third line probably if I bring him back at all. I didn't mind Vince G's suggestion of bring him back in February like Mike Fisher.
If his see, at least Mike Fisher retired like he just retired and then decided to come back.
Right.
Like I feel like if he doesn't if he's not in the lineup at the start of the year, if they don't sign him before, like what does that tell I just feel like, man, that's setting the fan base up for a disaster because they're gonna be like, well, what's his health really? That's gonna be the thing, right? Like if he's not good until the middle of the season, is it because of his health? Is he just taking time off? Like, what's it gonna be, right? And I think that, and plus you just leave him out there. I mean, I don't know.
I think Thornton wants to play badly enough. He would not wait till February to play.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Like,
I think Toronto would scoop him up easy and try and recreate the Thornton Marleau magic. Like, I think if the Sharks don't sign Thornton by July 2nd, I think the Maple Leafs are going to be all over it.
Someone will be. Someone will sign Joe Thornton. Like, I think the idea that Joe Thornton's just, not going to get someone's going to take a flyer on him. If the Sharks don't, someone else will. Someone will take a flyer on a first ballot Hall of Fame defenseman, even with no legs. And we've seen it happen over and over again where I don't know why it would even be a contentious point at this point. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
and even prior, like, so last season he's not playing bad, but he's just kind of on the downtrend, and then he gets hurt, and then he comes back for the playoffs, and he's not really a factor. But you know what? Coming into this season, I thought he was playing some really good hockey, and I think it was unfortunate that he got hurt. And I think whatever he did last time, whatever recovery road he took, if he can do that again, like, there's no reason the Sharks shouldn't re-sign him, because he was, like I said, he was playing some really good hockey. And I think too, I know I've talked about like confidence boosts and emotional boosts and stuff like that. I think the Sharks re-signing Evander Kane, I think that definitely gets Joe Thornton up. Like,
Yeah, he didn't get to play with him.
Exactly. And supposedly they're boys too. So,
Right.
If you're having fun, if you automatically play better if you're having fun. Like that's just the way it is. Any athlete will tell you that.
And for all the griping we do about, like especially on the power play was a disaster without Joe Thornton. Like it took a dive off a cliff without Joe Thornton. For all the complaining we do about, he slows down the game and where the pass is going to be and blah, blah, blah. Well, apparently it works because when Joe Thornton was gone, we're all idiots. The power play was garbage. The power play did not improve suddenly without him because, he's slowing down the play, blah, blah, blah. No, actually, the power play was just garbage without him. I think that needs to be...
Bad ice. It was bad ice.
It was bad ice, yes, of course, the bad ice. The Barracuda, god damn it. Did you answer the question, Mr. Jerk? I don't know if I let you answer or not.
I did not answer the question.
Would you like to answer the question?
Oh, I would love to.
Okay.
So the question is from Teal Tinted Glasses. It's from our top prospect, Drew Weber.
Yes.
He asked, why does Hockey Jerk hate Chris Tierney so much? Now, fourth NHL season, and he has his career high of 17 goals. That's your hero. Like, really? But yeah, like I said, one good year out of 4. And if he can have another good year next year, then you know what? I'll eat a whole nother shoe, like I said last week. But I don't see it. Like Kevin said, if he was going to be a second line center, he would be a second line center by now. And I'm really on those people who clock Tierney at around $3 million for next season.
None of that.
Like let's pump the brakes here. Because I said it how many ever shows ago it was, the Sharks I think would be making a fatal mistake if they don't at least see how other teams value Chris Tierney now that he's had a good season. And the same is said about Dylan DeMello.
Yeah.
For all that's said about, the Sharks need to recoup draft picks. They don't have any draft picks, but then a pretty, solid chance to recoup a draft pick comes up, and then it's all of a sudden it's like, well, he was here, for this and blah, blah, blah. And it can't please everybody.
This is true, especially in a Hockey Jerk.
Yeah. Like we established earlier, I hate everything at least. And so, yeah. So
the Sharks make a signing.
You want to fix the power play? Maybe you do it with the guy the Sharks just signed today.
Yeah. So tell me about this guy, Kevin. You're a European scout.
So Antti Suomela. It's not Suomela and it's not Suomela. It's just Suomela.
Suomela. Okay.
Yeah, that was pretty good. So I haven't seen a whole lot of him because unfortunately I have basically spent 2 whole years not watching Europe, which is just tragic. But he was the leading scorer in Liga this season. Based on what I recall of him, he's got pretty good mobility and he's got wonderful vision. Which is, I think, a big underrated part of like Pittsburgh's Cup reigns. Washington this year, even Vegas this year, is just the vision and the decision making that these guys make at the speeds that they do is amazing. And I think Antti Suomela can really help with that because I consider him more of a playmaker than a goal scorer. So there's that. That's why I alluded to the power play, for example. But if you have the vision, just the natural vision, the points are going to come anyway, if it's goals, assists, whatever. So I don't know what his cap is really, because he's 24 years old and he's never played in the NHL. And if he was that tremendous, he would have been signed 4 years ago. And he wasn't even drafted. So, but this is now 5 straight years that the Sharks have taken a player out of either Sweden or Finland. It was started with Jonas Donskoi, started with Melke Karlsson. The next year was Jonas Donskoi. Then it was Tim Heed.
Mm-hmm.
And then now I've already forgotten who it was last year, which sounds really dumb.
It was wasn't it Philip Sandberg?
It was Sandberg. Sandberg's okay. I was okay with it. I think it was Philip Sandberg.
Mm-hmm. I definitely drank the Kool-Aid on him a little too quick, and he kind of fell off in my rankings towards the end of the year.
Yeah. So yeah, it was Philip Sandberg. He was okay for me at the time, and he's still okay for me now.
Marcus Sorensen.
But
Marcus Sorensen.
Marcus Sorensen was another one in there. He was the same year as Heed.
Yeah.
And Mantis Armalis, but I do think I've talked a lot on previous weeks about how the Barracuda have way too many players, and they still do. But I don't think this is a Barracuda signing. I absolutely believe that Suomela will be on the Sharks next year.
Where does he go? Is he our fourth line center?
It'd probably be the fourth line because, DeBoer, it's like, well, you got to prove it to me, kid, kind of thing.
All right, yeah.
I don't know if that's the best role for him, to be honest. He probably should be tweening between the second and third lines, but we'll see.
Well, here's some anchors. Try and swim. I guess I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about the player. I mean, from what I understand, but just quickly looking, because I basically was like, oh, we signed a player and press start. I'm curious to see, man. This team is so intriguing. I think the Barracuda are so intriguing next year because the Sharks have so many guys, and I just don't know where they're gonna put them.
Yeah,
I feel like they just Allen's gonna just destroy the E next year. That's how I feel. Like Allen's gonna destroy the E with just the overflow from the Barracuda. I don't know. I mean, there's so many guys that are potentially, gonna play on the Barracuda. I mean, there may, depending what happens in free agency, there might be a couple spots on the Sharks. I don't really know I'm not sure what's on the Sharks right now. Honestly, I don't know if there's really a spot to be had, depending on obviously off-season moves. Look, until I know what's going to happen with Mikhail Bodker, for example, is he still going to be here next year? Is he traded? Is he bought out? That might open up some spots, but I don't know where I don't know where the spots on the Sharks are going to come from, which means you have a backlog. I mean, I've seen your Barracuda spreadsheet, Kevin. Is there a level below the ECHL that we can send players? I don't know.
Well, as far as I'm aware, we don't have an SPHL affiliate yet.
Okay,
but we might have to get one of those teams, the Laredo Buckeye. Oh no, they're the CHL. Whatever, the Laredo Buckeyes. Let's make it happen.
I don't know. I think the Barracuda training camp might be more interesting for me this year than the Sharks training camp.
All right, I do want to give 3 more notes here on Suomela real quick.
Sounds good.
First off, I have to hat tip Cheryl Ganapol, fan of the show, friend of the show, because she's actually the one back in March. And thank you, Hockey Jerk, for finding the tweet for me because the mobile Twitter search is broken.
It's awful.
But Cheryl had asked me back on March 2nd about this player based on some guy named Fitzgerald White, or I don't know, White Fitz 7 on Twitter.
Okay.
When the Sharks signed Vincent Prapolin, who I'm like, on. They said, how about we get Suomela? And I was like, yeah. So it actually happened. So, hey, good for you, Cheryl, to get my scouting going here a few months ago on this player.
Very nice.
We'll put a foreseen point in your account.
There you go.
There you go. I've already forgotten point number 2. Because that's just me, you know me. And then the third point is I'm very intrigued to see how he could mesh with Marcus Sorensen, because Marcus Sorensen is a speedy goal scorer and Suomela is a speedy playmaker, and those two guys I really like to see them start on a line together. If Suomela or Sorensen make the Sharks next year. So.
Yeah. Okay. Skylar asked the question: do the Cuda win the Calder Cup next year? I think the Cuda are going to be fun to watch. I don't like that defense core.
Yeah, I don't think they have enough high end depth. Like if I was to compare the best players on the depth chart right now for the Barracuda versus the Marlies, I think the Marlies would sweep the Barracuda.
Like, you know, another team that is gonna have a pretty good farm team next year potentially, the Rampage.
Yeah, because I mean, I actually expected bigger things out of the Rampage this year just because of the influx of Blues players. Mm-hmm. They were better, but yeah, that's a good call.
The Blues have some prospects that could potentially that I feel like they've got a few good prospects aging out of junior that could potentially some of these guys are probably gonna get to the Blues right away, but if they end up needing some time in the A, the Rampage are going to be a damn good team next year. So I don't know. To me, it's like Vince G says, glass cannon, baby. And that's the way I would look at the Barracuda. They're going to be a glass cannon. I just don't like the D. I like Antoine Bibeau, and I like what he did last year. But, man, the defense in front of him, don't like it. Don't like it at all.
Yeah, and that's kind of been an issue that we've identified pretty much all year is Bibeau's Bibeau played really well this year, and like I said, I don't think the goal scoring is going to be an issue considering how many guys are actually going to be, on this squad. But yeah, that defense is tough. I mean, we've all had things to say about Julius Bergman, and obviously Schimmick didn't take the steps that we had all anticipated. And I think the silver lining in all of this, DeSimone definitely hit a rut this year compared to how well he played 2 years ago. But I think the silver lining and everything is that, and I feel like we say this every year, but Jeremy Waugh is going to come back better.
Jeremy Waugh was great the 3 weeks before he got hurt. It was like, all right, here it's coming in now.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's 2 or 3 week stretch right before he got hurt. He was the best defenseman for the Barracuda.
Yeah, he was the best player for the Barracuda, even better
and that's the thing. Even if let's say they draft a defenseman in the first round, right? Take a Sandine or something. That's not help coming for the Barracuda right away. No. There's no help coming.
No,
for the Barracuda right away. That's I think the frustrating thing for the Barracuda is there's just defensively there's no help coming because there's really not much in the pipeline.
Here you go. I've remembered point number 2, and I can circle it to this. Point number 2 is that I already forgot the player's name. Antti Suomela. I said Max Latunov. He's new. Yeah, sure.
He's coming.
Antti Suomela is one of the only prospect signings the Sharks have had in this offseason. I mean, you could say Vincent Praplin, but Praplin spent last year in training camp. So usually by now the Sharks have signed 4 or 5 college free agents. It's been just very interesting to see. That is those free agents could have all been defensemen to help the Barracuda this year, and it just hasn't happened. So
yeah, and even signings that were specifically for the Barracuda, they signed the
Tom Gregoire, they signed,
and they signed the center out of the Memorial Cup champions,
Jeff Viel.
Yeah, Jeff Viel, who was awesome in the Memorial Cup.
He was.
So it'll be interesting to see what he does coming in. But man, that again, I just don't know where all these players are going to go and who's gonna stick and who's not. And Cam, been kind of beating at me in the chat, it makes sense for the, would the Sharks trade, they've got an excess amount of forwards. I don't know if they're they're not top flight forwards per se, but they've got some decent forward prospects that you got to wonder if they're, they're going to flip some for some help on the defensive end, because you do have, I'm not saying they don't really have much in the way of blue chip prospects on the Barracuda. I think collectively as a forward group, it's an exciting forward group, but there's only a couple of players that really project well, in my opinion.
Balsers and Gambrell.
Right. Beyond that, yeah, maybe not. Like a lot of, I mean, we've been wrong before, but there's not a lot of top prospects on the Sharks, and calling Balser as a top flight prospect, and honestly, he's middle of the road for me.
Yeah.
Like the potential's there, sure, but does he, is his ceiling that high? His ceiling might be high, but can he get there? I don't know. And I know I don't want to end the show on a sour note, but
I have a Sandine question.
Sure.
Okay.
So now, just looking at elite prospects,
mm-hmm.
And now Kevin, you're gonna have to help me out here. Where did Rogle? That was his Swedish Hockey League team. How do you say that?
Rugla.
Sure. Yep.
Sure.
Yeah, we got it. Robitussin.
Rugla, the team that Brian Lurg went to.
Gotcha. So he played 5 games there, and then it appears that he was loaned to the Hounds. Now he's already committed, according to Elite Prospects, is committed for Rugla next year. If let's say the Sharks draft him, would he be considered drafted out of the Swedish Hockey League or the OHL?
OHL.
Okay. I wasn't sure if there was some kind of weird loophole if he went back or whatever.
The thing that they own his rights, but if he wants to play, because he made the decision to go to the OHL and his team let him go. If he wants to stay, his team's gonna let him stay.
Right. Last year or 2 years ago, I got fooled because I thought, it was 2 years ago, Alex Nylander got drafted by the Sabres, and it was like, oh, he's going to play in Rugla next year. That's an interesting thing. And then that turned out to be a rights-only thing. He never left the Canadian Hockey League.
Right.
Yeah, so, he was on Mississauga, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I'm speaking of the draft dogs. I'm hoping to take a more prospect thingies done. I had a very busy last little bit. I mean, we didn't do a show last week. I think I had one day off, and I was just not doing anything on it. But I do plan to crank out some more of those prospect things, and I appreciate everyone reading them so far. We have one last question in the notes that I almost completely forgot. Mike Hoffman trade, yay or nay? We'll do this quick because we've probably been going pretty long at this point. I don't know what the Sharks would give up to get a Mike Hoffman. I don't think I like the price to get a Mike Hoffman. I like Mike Hoffman. I think that he had a down year, and I think that if you could buy low on him, I'm all about it. But I don't know. I'm afraid of the price.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Senators are going to ask for a lot. And like you said, he's a good player, had a down year. But if I'm thinking of this from an Ottawa Senators perspective, he's found chemistry with Matt Duchene. And if you're if you're looking to the future or whatever, I mean, Hoffman, yes, he's been a right now player for the last few years, but he's still incredibly young. And if you've got something with him and Duchene, you don't walk away from
that. Cam, left wing, though we got plenty, except for when Kane gets LTIR 2 weeks into the season.
Actually, Hoffman is a left winger. I actually do like him better on the right side. So, in fact, I do think he plays right side on the Senators' power play. But I like Mike Hoffman a lot. But I'm with you, Ian. I think the price is just going to be astronomical.
Yeah, I think you can't win that trade. I mean, I know, look, the Sharks are going to have to move some money around, especially depending what they do in the offseason, because Pavelski, that's going to be an interesting negotiation. Couture, you absolutely need to sign. It's not even a question. Plus, Hurdle's probably going to make some money. We hope that a guy like Tierney DeMello doesn't really ring the bell at all, but has Doug Wilson overvalued players before that he's grown and paid them too much? Yep. So Chris Tierney getting money is potential. I mean, you're gonna have to move money around at some point, because going forward, I mean, you can't sign everyone to 8-year deals. I mean, you're gonna have to start doing. It's like I said last show. Do you become the Chicago Blackhawks without the Cups and just have to keep dealing young players to stay under the cap? I don't know. I know the cap, we got a question with the cap in the chat. 80 million, here's the thing though, and I really don't want to get too political, but ever since these Trump tariffs have gone through, the Canadian dollar's taken an absolute pounding. And that is a huge factor for the cap. So I don't know if that's going to affect the cap number this year, but it's something to watch for next year because our dollar is just taking a crap kicking right now.
Yikes.
But yeah, so I'm sure we would burn down the White House.
I was going to say I feel like, and myself included, I feel like that's not something that's really considered a whole lot, you know?
Yeah.
Like I feel like without getting too into it, I feel like sports are the escape from that kind of stuff, and yet here it is dictating this same stuff.
We joke around that Ian's the angry Canadian robot. He literally has a wire plugged into his collarbone. Yeah, this is monitoring my heart rate. I have to wear it for another week. It's annoying.
Oh man,
but I'm fine. But I am okay. Don't worry. Everything's fine so far.
You know what else is fine? The Washington Capitals are up 3-1 in the series.
I don't know. Like that's just to me, man. Like so that's something to watch. Watch the Canadian dollar because the Canadian dollar has a significant impact on the salary cap. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, yeah, we'll have to figure it out. Other than that, I don't think we have anything really left unsaid. So I will turn it over for final thoughts. I'll start with you, Mr. Kevin Lacey.
All right, 2 final thoughts here, both Caps related. One you'll find very interesting. The other you'll probably be like, "Oh, Kevin." First the "Oh, Kevin" one. Alex Ovechkin. So I kind of don't want Washington to win tomorrow, just because I want them to win on home ice. I feel like the Golden Knights fans just won't appreciate what they're seeing. I think they're too young in their fandom to really recognize what is happening if the Capitals win in Vegas tomorrow night. Nevertheless, you don't pick where you win, just win, you know? I think it'd be so poetic if Alex Ovechkin scores in overtime to win the cup for the Capitals, because believe it or not, Alex Ovechkin has never scored a playoff overtime goal in his career.
Damn.
So, yeah.
Oh, Kevin.
Yeah. Okay.
Kevin.
Now here's the stat here, and I know I've mentioned it before, but I don't remember what show, whatever. So I'm saying it again. If the Capitals can win the Stanley Cup here over the next 3 games, Jay Beagle, I think the only player that we somehow haven't mentioned on that team, who I freaking love. I love Jay Beagle. Will, to best of my knowledge, and I've researched this, and I can't find anyone else, will be the only player in history to have won the ECHL's Kelly Cup, the AHL's Calder Cup, and the NHL's Stanley Cup. I don't even think anyone has ever won a Kelly Cup and a Stanley Cup together, but he would have all 3 levels. What's up?
I said, now I need to know. I'm going to go.
So, man, I mean, I know I said it before about like, well, if the Caps could ever get it together and win a Stanley Cup, Jay Beagle would have this stat, and you're 1 win away from it happening. So,
that's amazing.
For a guy who was undrafted, too.
I always love those stories.
Yeah.
All right. Where can they find you?
Oh, I'm at Kevin Lacey 22. Sorry, whenever I talk about Jay Beagle, I just get like lost in thought. He's like the Eastern Andrew Desjardins for me. I freaking love him. So yeah, I'm at Kevin Lacey 22. Follow me on Twitter so you can see me screaming about the Caps, and then after that, I'll be discussing draft stuff for the Sharks. So.
Woohoo! Mr. Hockey Jerk.
All right, another show down. You know, I feel like we started a little bit late. That's my bad. I was, using my time machine to go make sure the Penguins won every cup in history. Vince G, that one's for you. I feel like we say it every week, but one of my favorite times of the season is coming up. I mean, free agency, the draft, the buyout window. I mean, it's gonna be an exciting couple of weeks, and this is going to be your source for, all the NHL happenings, and, we're going to be talking no matter what. And a lot of that's going to be driven by your questions. So Absolutely. if you have legitimate questions, you can send those to either Ian or Kevin. And if you have questions about the things that I hate or don't hate, you can send those to me on Twitter at hockey_jerk. And I will leave you with this. Capitals are going to win the Stanley Cup. And Ovechkin's going to score the winning goal. And it's going to be on Marc-Andre Fleury, who Ovechkin has struggled to beat in the past. And this is going to be his year.
Dude, what did you do with your time machine? All of a sudden, Alex Ovechkin is the captain of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and we're about to win the cup again.
Oh,
what just happened?
Oh man! Don't tell Vince G. He's gonna flip another table.
Oh my goodness. All right. So, obviously, again, like I said earlier, I appreciate everyone who's read the articles that I put up when I've had time to put them up. Like I said, I'm hoping I can spit one out over the next couple of days. Other than that, at Ian Blogs Hockey, you can find me for all my hockey whimsy on the Twitter machine and occasional rants about Ontario politics, I'm sure, since we go to the polls tomorrow. Other than that, though, I mean, obviously, thanks for listening, whether it's live or whether it's after the fact on the audio stream or you're watching it on YouTube after the fact. We appreciate all that. To echo what Jerk said, your questions are going to definitely keep this going through the summer, because that's how we get through. Because I want to do some different stuff this summer. I feel like the last couple of summers we had a little bit of kind of formulaic kind of themes throughout. We just kind of, I don't know. I don't want to do the same thing this summer where it's like, let's talk about this team for a whole show. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Maybe, I'll get scared and we'll go back to what works. But I'd like to do some different stuff this summer. We need your help to do that. So aside from that, obviously the draft is going to be the next big thing after the cup is over. I don't care who wins the cup, honestly. If we get a few more games, I'm glad that, we can watch into 2027 because that's when this final is going to end, apparently, if it goes the full 7 games. But you know what? All I'm going to say, I'm going to leave it at this. Vegas, the Sharks had a cup and the Sharks had a parade in 94 without winning, and we haven't won. Don't do that. Don't do it, Vegas. That's it. We're out. Have a good night.